Hi, I'm Dave with Butler Wobble, and today what we're going to take a look at is changing a tire on a unicycle. First thing we need to note is that the tire size is marked on the side of the tire, and when switching a tire you want to make sure you have something that is the same outside dimension. In this case it is a 24 by, and this tire is a 1.95. We're going to be swapping it for a 2.5, which is okay. The main numbers are marked here. This says 50, 507. We're looking for another tire that is marked 507, and I happen to have one right here. So first step, remove the bearing holders if you don't have a brake. And in this case, this is a 10mm hex head, and with all the bearing holders, it's lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. So I'll start. Okay, we've got the bearing holders off at this point, so we'll set this frame aside. And the next step we need to do is let the air out of the current tire. This would be different if you had a flat tire, but since in our case we're starting with the tire that was not flat. Push on the valve stem, and wait for it to go flat. Our key here is we want to let as much of the air out of the tire as possible, which will make our job easier here in just a moment. Alright, that should be good. Now, the big idea here is to get the tire off the rim. We want to use as few tools as possible. So we're going to take the tire and go around the outside of the rim part, the bead, and push it into the center channel as much as possible. Do it one side, do it the other side. Rims have a dip in the middle of it, which will help you removing the tire easily without using many tools. Alright, as much air as possible out of it easily. Now we're going to try and remove it by hand. If we get lucky, we can do that. If we don't get quite so lucky, we may have to use tire levers at this stage. Pinch it to the center. About opposite the valve stem. Lift up over the edge. And can we get any more air? Not quite, so we're going to have to use tire levers. We want to be careful not to pinch the tube. One lever hooks the bead of the tire. Try and keep it towards the center channel once again. Maybe two levers are necessary. Hook them under the bead and pull it around. The other side hopefully will come off, and now we have one tire off. Set that aside, and as you can see, for this tire it has a rim strip. Looks like it's duct tape. Most of the time it'll be rubber strip, but it can be various things as long as it keeps the tube away from the sharp parts of the rim. Okay, next part. Let's take our new tire, and the real mechanics trick is find the valve stem and line it up with the label. Now we're not using the main label on this tire as we're rotating this tire a little bit, so to make even wear. Line it up, put one side on at a time, and this should happen without tools. One side on, valve stem in, start at the valve stem for the second side. Now we want to make sure we don't pinch the tube. We seat the tire around the rim. All the way around, keeping it from coming off. And if we're lucky, it won't be too hard. Once again, we aim towards that center channel so as to not have to use tools getting it back on. Tire's on. Now we'll need to inflate. Get your pump. You should know how to hopefully do this, unique to each pump. And then inflate to the proper pressure. Now we could have put it back on the unicycle. We're going to take this one up to, it says 65 psi. We'll take it up to about 50 on the sidewall. You could do this after it's in the unicycle frame, especially if it has brakes, but we're going to check for seating now. As we start to pump it up, we'll notice the tire expands, and we want to watch around the outside edge to make sure it sits nicely on the rim as we get it up to pressure and does not pop out over the edge of the rim. Okay, good for now. We'll check the seating, see if it sat well. There's a mark on the bead, might be kind of tough to see, but there's a little line that we want to see is about equal distance from the center, or from the rim the whole way around. Looks like we're good on this side. Looks like we're good on this side. So now it's time to put the unicycle back together. This part, make sure you get your left and your right straight. Put the left on the left side. Now, your left side, take the left hand, find the left crank arm that is marked left. This one has an RH, that is the right hand. This is left. Take the frame as though you're sitting on it. Put the left side on the left, the right side on the right. Now it's as though we were riding it, left is left, right is right, and then however we do this, we got to put it back together. Reassemble the parts the way we had them. Alright. Getting it put back together. This will be different depending upon how your frame is, but just however you took the pieces apart, you're doing the step in reverse. I have all four of my bearing bolts on, and what I'm going to do is tighten them down approximately so they're equal. And the idea here, this is a key point, is to tighten them down so it holds the wheel on well, but the wheel still spins freely. So I want to make sure they're about equal distance apart on each one, and you'll have to kind of do this by feel. It's starting to get a little tighter with the wrench. Once again, this is the opposite of what we had before. We're still going lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, but I just switched my ratchet over. Other side. And those are starting to get tight. So here's where the part where you really have to feel for what's going on. Check the tire in the frame, make sure it's snug, but at the same time, whenever you spin the wheel should spin fairly freely. As you're holding it, you'll feel it move, and I can feel a little bit in the frame as I'm holding the frame that it might be just a wee bit tight. So I'll adjust. Check again. That's a little better. That's fine that way. So at this point we've changed the tire on the unicycle. Our bearing caps are tight enough that we don't have a problem with them being overly tight, crushing the bearings, or too loose, letting the wheel wobble within the frame. That's it for this time. Until next time, visit us at www.butlerwobble.blogspot.com.